along the winding ridges of Los Angeles mountains, just beyond the roar of the freeways. A secret universe unfolds in parallel with ours, woven from starlight and silence, existing quietly beside the chaos, as if the mountains themselves are dreaming another world into being. After February rains, Santa Monica and San Gabriel mountains feel reborn. The air sharpens, the light softens, and every trail seems to carry the scent of renewal. One of the first fragrances to rise after the rain is black sage, Salvia mellifera. Black sage thrives in chaparral ecosystem, perfectly adapted to long, dry summers and brief, soaking winters. Nearby, California sagebrush, Artemisia californica, shimmers in silvery gray tones. Unlike true culinary sage, this native shrub has a soft coastal scent, clean, with notes of resin and wild pepper, softened by a faint sweetness. It smells like dust kissed by the rain. Rain intensifies its fragrance, especially along canyon trails where moisture lingers. Standing sturdier and older than the shrubs below are the coast live oaks, Quercus agrifolia. Their broad, twisting branches stretch outward like living sculptures. After the rains, their deep green canopies look freshly polished. These oaks are ecological anchors, offering shade, shelter, and acorns that feed birds, deer, and small mammals throughout the year.
Hi, little one.
And then there is Toyon, Heteromelis arbutifolia, often called the Christmas berry tree. Toyon trees scatter across the hillsides and canyon edges, offering a vital source of winter nourishment for native birds. Beneath the oak canopies and along shaded north-facing slopes, February rains bring forth California golden chanterelles, Chanterelles californicas. These richly colored mushrooms push through leaf litter in quiet clusters, their golden caps echoing the warmth of returning sunlight. For a brief, golden window before spring heat returns, the mountains of Los Angeles hold a rare softness, a secret universe, scented with sage and alive with possibility. And this one is nice. There we go. Let's cover it. Thank you, dear mycelium. Thank you, dear. So some of these are super fresh, like this one, and some have a little bit of staining on the sides. But I bet you that inside there are very good parts. So I'm just going to trim them and keep the good parts. So I was right. Some of these mushrooms have very good pieces after they're cleaned up. So they're keepers. And the rest we're gonna leave in the forest for the mushrooms to multiply. Look at that huge family. Oh my God, and these are fresh. 1, 2, 3. Wow. Look how beautiful this one is. Beautiful. Thank you, dear mycelium.
hummingbird sage. The new flowers are about to bloom. They're so gorgeous, and it smells fantastic. I love using the leaves for tea and baths.
Alright guys, I am hungry and the lentil soup with seared chanterelles sounds fantastic right about now. So let's head home and prepare our harvest. Right friends, we're ready to make our broth. Our chanterelles are super dirty, so while we're cleaning them, that's gonna give us enough time to flavor the water that we're gonna use for our lentil soup. So I'm using 9 cups of water, and I'm using celery stalks, which I just halved or quartered, and then carrots of all colors. And I like to slice my carrots in half to increase the surface area so that we get as much of the flavor out of them into the broth. Then I'm using half of an onion, and as you can see, I don't peel the onion because I like the flavor and the color that the skin adds to the broth. I'm also using a couple of garlic cloves, and I smash them with the edge of the knife, not the edge, well yeah, I guess the edge of the knife. And then I also use dill and parsley, and specifically for the broth I use the stalks and I use the tops for other things like garnishing the dishes. We're gonna add more things to the broth a little bit later, and but that's gonna happen when everything boils. And for now, let's prepare the lentils. So you will notice that after you strain your broth, because of all the things that are keeping the water inside them, like the dill and the parsley, they will be soaked in water. You will lose some of the water, and you will end up with approximately, I don't know, 8.5 cups. And for 8.5 cups of water or broth, I'm going to use half a cup of a mix. So half a cup of a mix of 3 types of lentils. I'm using regular green lentils, yellow lentils, and French lentils. And I use more of the green lentils than any other, and then I split the other half between the French and the yellow. And usually they take different time to get ready to prepare, but I don't mind. It actually works out perfectly in my soup, even if I combine them together and add them all at the same time. And then French. A little bit more of the French. Let's do a little more of these. Voila! Next, we're going to dice 3 young potatoes, and I'm not going to peel them because the skin is going to add flavor to the soup. So while we're waiting for the time when we're going to add the potatoes, I'm going to keep them in the water submerged, just so they release some of the starch and stay fresh. Just remember, our lentils, potatoes, and mushrooms are going to be added after the broth is done. Meanwhile, we're going to prepare another secret ingredient called zazharka. So we're going to finely dice the other half of the onion and grate a big carrot, and we're going to caramelize them in a pan. We're going to start by putting the onions into a hot skillet that already has hot oil inside. And then as the onions caramelize, we're going to add the grated carrots. Ready. Now that our onions are sizzling and caramelizing a little bit, we're gonna add the carrots on top. We're gonna add salt after they all release their water. Okay, our broth came to a boil, and that means we can add salt. I use pink salt, however much you like. I'm also going to add bay leaves, and I like to add a lot of bay leaves, a ton. And we're going to also add some fresh black pepper. And don't worry, it's not gonna stay in the soup because we're still going to strain all of this. Let me grab a spoon and mix it all up. Beautiful. Let's drown all the bay leaves inside and return it to a mellow steep on the stove. So no more boiling. You can cover it up so it doesn't evaporate as much. And we're gonna steep it for another 10-15 minutes to get out the flavor from the bay leaves and everything else. And then we're gonna strain it and add all of the ingredients inside. Beautiful. All the peppers stayed inside. I transfer everything that was making our broth into the strainer, and I allow the liquid to drain, and we're going to use that liquid for our broth. Now that the carrots have released the water, it's time to add salt. Because now everything is like a sponge and it's going to soak in all the flavor. We will return this back onto the stove top to let it caramelize even more. And for now, let's clean up our mud puppies, our beautiful golden California chanterelles. Our zajarka is ready, and so is our broth. Let's combine them together. Nice and golden. Lots of flavor. Going into the pot. Ooh. Now we're gonna also add our potatoes. And our beautiful lentils. And return everything to the stove top. And we're gonna prepare them until the potatoes and lentils are ready. And then at the very end, add our chanterelles. And a quick break to run pick up my children from school, and then I will finish maybe with less lighting, but we're gonna make it work. Let's go. Let's make sure we turned off the stove. Everything's off. I'm usually good about that. All right, back on the road to pick up the kids from school. All right, we're back and we're ready to clean our mud puppies, our chanterelles. Just a little bit of water, and let's begin. I usually use fresh water. Well, my water is not filtered. I get my water from the mountains, from the springs, so I use spring water to clean them up because they soak water fairly quick, so I don't want this to be water from the faucet. All right, nice and clean, and we'll trim them afterwards. And if you have filtered water running from your faucet, then that would be wonderful, right? Then you don't have to do the water bath. But for me, I'm trying to save the water. So there we are. Okay, we'll clean this later. This big one I had to break apart so that I can get into the middle and wash it off real well. And I'm going to rinse them one more time after this bath is done. Oh, no, that is a little string. So the first rinse is finished, but now we're gonna trim them and then we're going to wash them again. We're gonna cut off. And then check the edges. I think I'm going to get rid of this part.
That's false reporting.
And then slice them in half to make sure they're nice and fresh inside. And continue. Okay, so I'm going to cut off some of these edges. I'm going to slice this guy to make sure it's nice and fresh inside. One final rinse, and we're almost ready. All right, nice and beautiful. Gorgeous. All right, so we got ourselves some clean chanterelles, all trimmed, all cleaned up. Now there are two options. We can go ahead and cut them before searing them, or we can go ahead and do the rustic way and just pull them apart into pieces. And that's what I will be doing. I like doing it this way because it preserves the stringy texture of the chanterelle. So that's what I'm gonna do for now before searing them, and then before adding them to the soup, I will chop them up anyways. But I like cooking them this way, that way you get all sorts of different flavor layers. You'll get the crispy on the outside, you'll get the still soft and fresh on the inside. All right, we're transferring our chanterelles into a hot skillet and allowing them to release the water. Just like that. Very rustic. Not crowding the pan too much. The mushroom released all the water. We're going to add some oil. And now we can sear. Alright. Each piece is perfectly golden. And this is where we stop.